More than 35,000 migrants have crossed the English Channel to arrive in the UK so far this year, a raw statistic representing the number of people the British government has failed to dissuade. The figure is already a record, and there is no sign yet of sailings being curtailed from the summer peak. With winter looming, there is added danger in making the crossing from northern France to southern England in bad weather. Channel migrants and how they are treated is a political problem for the ruling Conservative government, which has promised to be tough on immigration. Increased naval patrols, asking France to step up land operations, and the Rwanda deportation policy, a controversial move that so far has not properly got off the ground, are among the measures the government has tried to reduce the number of people from attempting the trip. But the number of migrants who cross one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world in often unseaworthy boats has risen from a few hundred to tens of thousands in 4 years. Another 539 people were detected on Monday in 13 boats, the Ministry of Defense said, taking the provisional total for the year to 35,233. This is more than the whole of 2021, when 28,561 were recorded. There have been 2,232 crossings recorded in October so far, an analysis of government figures shows. This includes 1,065 people making the journey on Sunday, marking the fourth time the daily total had topped 1,000 in 7 weeks. Crossings continued on Tuesday amid calm conditions at sea. In 2018, 299 people were detected making the journey. The next year, 1,843 crossings were recorded, 8,466 in 2020 and 28,561 in 2021. In 2018, there were fewer than 10 people per boat, while in 2019 and 2020 the average was in the high teens. In 2021, the average increased further, reaching 20 in March and 30 by August. It reached 40 per boat in June this year, then 46 in August. The latest milestone comes as the government faces another legal challenge to its plan to send migrants to Rwanda. Charity Asylum Aid's case is due to be heard by high court judges this week after similar challenges were made last month. Deportation flights are on hold while the legal disputes continue. The court is expected to give its ruling on all of the cases at the same time, at a later date. Since former Home Secretary Priti Patel announced the Rwanda deal in April, 29,965 people have arrived in the UK after making the journey from France. Despite this, the number of people arriving in the UK in small boats is still a fraction of those going to mainland Europe. Data from the UN's refugee agency shows at least 120,441 people arrived in Europe via the Mediterranean by land and sea last year. 5 more people died in the English Channel on Tuesday, underscoring the risks of crossing one of the world's busiest sea lanes in overloaded inflatable boats just hours after British lawmakers approved a controversial migrant bill to stop the traffic. The migrants, including a 7-year-old girl, died when their boat got stuck on a sandbank off the coast of Pas de Calais in northern France. The French Navy rescued 49 people, but 58 others refused to disembark and continued on toward Britain, local authorities said in a statement. The vessel was just one of several small boats packed with people that took off from the French coast early Tuesday as calm weather enticed them to attempt the crossing. The overcrowded boats are being monitored by drones, French maritime authorities said. Just a few hours earlier, the UK Parliament approved legislation allowing the government to deport to Rwanda those who enter the country illegally. While Prime Minister Rishi Sunak says the plan will deter people from risking their lives on the channel, human rights groups have criticized it as illegal and inhumane. The number of migrants crossing the channel in small boats has soared in recent years as people fleeing war. The effects of climate change and economic uncertainty seek a better life in Britain. They pay smugglers thousands of dollars for the crossing, hoping to reunite with family members or find work in a country where immigration enforcement is seen as weak and where migrant groups from all over the world can easily melt into society. Human rights organizations say the way to stop the trafficking is for countries to work together to provide safe and legal routes for migrants, not for countries like Britain to put up barriers and outsource their problem to others. But even allies Britain and France have struggled to sufficiently coordinate efforts to reduce the number of those crossing the English Channel in small boats. The UK has struck a series of deals with France to increase patrols of beaches and share intelligence to disrupt smugglers, all of which have had only a limited impact. Britain's effort to send some asylum seekers to Rwanda was swiftly condemned by both the United Nations Refugee Agency and the Council of Europe, which called on the UK to rethink its plans. The new legislation marks a further step away from the UK's long tradition of providing refuge to those in need, in breach of the Refugee Convention UN. High Commissioner for Refugees Filippo Grandi said in a statement. Protecting refugees requires all countries, not just those neighboring crisis zones, to uphold their obligations. Small boat crossings are a potent political issue in Britain, where they are seen as evidence of the government's failure to control immigration. The number of migrants arriving in Britain on small boats soared to 45,774 in 2022 from just 299 4 years. The figure dropped to 29,437 last year as the government cracked down on people smugglers and reached an agreement to return Albanians to their home country. For several months, Ireland has seen an increase in migrants entering from the United Kingdom. The country, faced with a serious housing crisis, is struggling to welcome these new asylum seekers. Homelessness has become a common experience for those awaiting protection. Migrants went to meet them. Nearly 10,000 accommodation requests since January. The Irish authorities themselves admit it. They are no longer able to meet the needs of newly arrived migrants, most of whom come from the neighboring United Kingdom. Since January, 9,700 people arriving in Ireland have requested accommodation, an average of 389 per week. This is more than 5 times the 2017 to 2019 average, the Ministry of Children, Equality, Disability, Integration and Youth told Infomigrants. Most asylum seekers in Ireland are from Nigeria, followed by Georgia and Algeria. This unprecedented influx is linked to the United Kingdom's migration policy. The Conservatives, who lost the last legislative elections against Labour, plan to implement their infamous Rwanda plan deportations to Kigali of people who entered British soil irregularly. Fear of these forced deportations has caused some asylum seekers to flee to Ireland, deemed more welcoming. To try to meet growing demand, the Irish authorities hastily set up centres made of large military tents and bunk beds, but they are not enough to take care of everyone. There are approximately 448,600 refugees in the UK. The war in Ukraine and the conflict in Afghanistan have driven increases in these figures from previous years. Of the top 10 nationalities applying for asylum, half have a grant rate above 80%, Afghanistan 98%, Syria 99%, Eritrea 99%, Sudan 99%, and Iran 84%. At the end of March 2024, 118,329 people were waiting on a decision for their asylum claim. 78,907 had been waiting over 6 months. Most of our clients, 69%, spent over a year waiting to receive their refugee status, with some waiting considerably longer. 1 in 10 waited more than 6 years, and 1 in 20 waited longer than 10 years. While they wait, most asylum seekers are not permitted to work, cannot choose where they live, and rely on government cash grants equivalent to PS7 per day for food, sanitation, and clothing. Alternatively, many asylum seekers end up in detention centers, where conditions for them can be extremely challenging. 16,031 people were placed in detention centers by March 2024.